Welcome, everyone. My name is Joanne Fuller, and I am the Projects and Training Coordinator with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. I am coordinating the Cultivating Local project alongside my colleague, Danielle Sharman, who is a farm policy analyst here at OFA and unfortunately had to send her regrets today. A few housekeeping items. Please keep yourself on mute as this is a meeting style workshop. We will ensure there are lots of opportunities for questions. This workshop will be recorded and will be available on OFA's Cultivating Local webpage. We also ask that you kindly keep your video off to keep the bandwidth low for our attendees with limited connectivity. Good morning and welcome to our fourth workshop in the Ontario Federation of Agriculture's Cultivating Local series. OFA has been a long-standing supporter of our members who are eagerly diversifying into new products, new market channels, and finding innovative ways to get their agriculture products to Ontarians looking for fresh local food, flowers, textiles, and so much more. Over 30 commodity and agriculture organizations are members of OFA, and we are grateful to have their support on this project, alongside many community and economic development organizations that have helped to bring this project to life. There are so many opportunities in the Ontario marketplace, whether you are a new farmer, the next generation to a farm family, an established farmer, a creative food or beverage entrepreneur, or you work closely with agri-food clients to make their business dreams a reality. We are thrilled you are joining us to learn more. With so many avenues to get agriculture and food projects to Ontarians, we hope this workshop series will enable you to consider which opportunity best fits your business and products, and learn some tips and tricks from the many innovative farmers, food and beverage businesses that have taken the leap to sell directly to consumers. Ontario's agriculture, food, and beverage sector is ripe for growth, already generating over $50 billion in GBT annually and employing over 870 Ontarians. We produce over 200 commodities here in the province, and we know that number will continue to grow as we discover new varieties, new markets, and new opportunities to cultivate local. OFA is thrilled to be running this workshop alongside our partners. We hope you learn a lot today, and please join us for the 5 more workshops to come. Thank you. Now, next, I'd like to welcome Krista Chapman. Krista is a consultant at Wilton Consulting Group. Wilton Consulting Group provides research and insights for the agri-food sector and rural communities. Her and the team at Wilton Group are leading the planning and delivery of this Cultivating Local series, and we cannot thank them enough. Krista?
Thank you, Joe. Great remarks. Appreciate that. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us from all over Ontario. So quick hello this morning. And to kick things off, we'd like to use Slido today so you can tell us a little bit more about yourself. So please join using the QR code below or use the hyperlink in the chat, which my colleague Jessica is going to paste here. So you should be able to click right on the chat there, and that should take you right to Slido. So you can join using your browser or from your cell phone. I like to use my cell phone, but you can use whichever avenue works best for you. So just want to start things off and learn where you're joining from today, which part of Ontario you're joining us from, or maybe you're not in Ontario this morning. So yeah, looks great. We have lots of folks from Eastern Ontario and Southern Ontario, so great to see that representation. Folks from Western Ontario as well and the North, so great to have everyone here today. Awesome. Lots of folks here in Southern Ontario. We just got lots of snow last night, so hopefully folks are keeping warm. Great. Yeah, I see about 22 of us have participated. So if you haven't joined yet, you can use your cell phone and take a picture of that QR code, which will take you right to Slido. Or you can click the link that Jessica has posted in the chat there, which will take you right to the Slido itself. We're going to be using Slido for the Q&A session today as well. Excellent. Well, thanks, everybody. So next, I want to learn a little bit more about where you are at in your journey with selling to restaurants and institutions. So maybe you're not established yet and you're really starting your research out today or in the last little while. Maybe you're just here to learn a little bit more about it, and that's great. Possibly you're in the early days of selling into restaurants and institutions, or maybe we have some more experienced folks on the line today who've been doing this for a while and are here to share their expertise, share their experiences, or hopefully learn something new as well. So great, we'll let people continue to participate there. And for folks who've just joined us, you can take a picture of the QR code with your phone, which will take you right to Slido, or the link for the Slido is also in the chat. So you can join via browser or phone. It's great. We've got a pretty even split between not established yet, have been doing this for a while, and would just like to learn more about it. And then a couple folks here who are also in the early days of selling into restaurants and institutions. We've got a little more of a lead here for folks who are more experienced and those who want to learn more about it. So this is really great. I think we have a really good mix of expertise on the line today. So I hope everyone learns something. And folks, if you are experienced in this space, I welcome you to share your expertise with people on the line as well. So next, for folks who, whether you're just starting out or if you are really just dipping your toes into the research, or maybe you're more experienced, I want to learn a little bit more about maybe some of the challenges that you've encountered while selling into restaurants and institutions. Yeah, whether you're new to the experience or if you've been doing it for years. So using that Slido, you can share one or two of those hurdles maybe that you've faced in your business, whether it's related to building relationships, balancing pricing and payments, managing delivery logistics, or any of those items. So feel free to enter your thoughts there. Just a couple of words. We'll use your input to help steer today's conversations and hopefully address some of your challenges on the line this morning. So I see we have some people typing, so we'll give you a moment just to participate there. Distribution and consistency of orders. Yes, that's a great point. And getting paid on time. That is important in running your business for sure. Balancing pricing and payments. Yes, so that costing piece is important. Seeing a theme already here in terms of payments and distribution. Usually looking for certain cuts, navigating sometimes pushy conversations about pricing. Yeah, that can feel a little awkward. So maybe we can learn a little bit more about that today. Pricing from third-party wholesalers, seasonality, just getting in the door. Great point. Stock. So having a restaurant want 70 specific cuts and being stuck with the cuts they don't want. Yeah, really great points. Ability to provide product year-round with seasonal harvest, practicalities, fresh versus frozen, having a hard time selling flowers for restaurants. Yeah, these are all really great points and interesting challenges here. So hopefully I've made a note of a couple of these, and hopefully we'll get to some of these today. And feel free to bring some of these challenges with you into the Q&A when we get started here with some of the speakers that we have on the line. I think we've got some great expertise here today to help with some of these challenges. Legalities, good point. Rural area with only small towns and being new to the area. Distribution, size of order, consistency, wanting the best for the lowest price. Yes. Transporting meat with dairy product issues. Yeah, so keeping things in cold storage cold. So great points. Really good points today. Thanks, everybody. This is really, really helpful, and appreciate your participation. So yeah, feel free to bring some of these to our Q&A sessions, and we'll help use them to sort of steer our conversations today. So as I mentioned, we're going to use Slido for our Q&A sessions today as well. So you'll see on your phone or browser that there's a Q&A tab on the top left of your Slido screen. So to ask questions during our panel sessions and our presentations, just click that Q&A tab and you can enter your question right away. The default is set to anonymous, so you can ask your questions anonymously, or if you'd prefer to have your name attached to those questions, you can enter your name there in the text box before you submit. So feel free to monitor the Q&A area as well as we go. If you like the questions that are in there, you can upvote them, and we'll see the most sort of popular questions pop up to the top, and hopefully we can prioritize the ones that we address today, but hopefully we get to all of them. We'll do our best to get to as many as we can today. Great. So now that we've learned a little bit more about everyone on the line this morning, I'm really pleased to introduce our first speaker and presentation for today. So please join me in welcoming Paul Sawtell. Paul is the co-founder and co-owner of 100 Kilometer Foods, an award-winning local food distribution company based in Toronto. Since 2008, Paul has sought to create a strong, viable, and fair local food economy that benefits not only consumers, but also the farmers and producers who grow their food. It's Paul's belief that for-profit organizations aimed at doing the right thing can be instruments for real change. 100 Kilometer Foods Inc. is currently in its 17th year of operation. Welcome, Paul, and good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Let me share my screen here. All right. Can you see oh, I have to click share. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes, looks great, Paul. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. All right. Let me minimize this. Thank you for the introduction. I'm coming from a particularly chilly warehouse today, so I have not taken off my toque, so excuse my winter appearance. But I'm happy to present to you today. We've been doing this, like Krista said, since 2008. So we're in our 17th year of operation. Made every mistake you can imagine. So it's my pleasure to at least quickly impart some of our experiences and lessons learned in the time I have with you today. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what I would like to cover. So an introduction to myself, our company, the kind of the local food landscape then and now when we started in 2008 versus what we see and observe today. What we feel like most chefs are looking for, some lessons learned, where things really start to come together and work and kind of what that looks like. Give you a particular brief story about a case study that's worked really well. Some considerations around when you choose to sell to restaurants, some different models you can pursue, and then some challenges, and then some time for Q&A as well. And we'll get started. So this is me and my partner Grace. So we started this business together. We're husband and wife. We have two kids. This was our first baby, 100 Kilometer Foods, in 2008, and we started this. Actually, we met doing pharmaceutical sales of all things. So it's that classic pharmaceutical sales reps turned vegetable monger story, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with. But really, at the end of the day, in our previous careers, we were kind of filling our wallets and emptying our souls. So it was very clear when I was in my mid to late 20s that I wasn't in the right field for myself. So we were looking for opportunities to do something a lot more interesting and align with our values. So we ended up quitting our jobs in 2007. We went traveling for 7 months and then came back, and we were at a discussion called The Politics of Local Food. It was a panel discussion between chefs and farmers, basically both parties saying that they wanted to work with each other, but for many reasons that we will probably hear about today and that we're all familiar with, it was a real challenge, and there's barriers to kind of make those pieces come together. So we kind of naively thought, how hard could this be? There's obviously an express need here, so we will use our sales backgrounds and see if we can connect the dots here. So there is somewhere in the ether a napkin with 100 Kilometer Foods ? Scribbled on it, and it was literally that during that talk that the idea for this company was born. And in that, what we were able to really do, and which was our driving force to begin with, was to have employment and um, earn money in a way that was more congruent with our values. So we're very happy that we were able to build something that was true to our vision and our mission. We were very happy to receive a bunch of Best for the World awards from B Corporation, which we are a certified B Corp. And in doing so, obviously we're not making the money that we used to. Food is a tough business, but we can definitely sleep at night like this cute little dog nestled in a pillow. There's some substantial differences between then and now. It was definitely good timing when we started. Local food was, I think, really starting to hit its stride. Locavore was the Oxford Dictionary Word of the Year in 2007, I believe. There was slow food events all over the place. It felt like it was a real burgeoning movement and community, and we were definitely the beneficiaries of that. It was still kind of very warm and fuzzy, and novel, sadly. Um, and we were delivering like this bushel of beets is a good picture. We were delivering things quite raw, figuratively and literally, but like mud covered beets in a bushel basket, which was very cute on the first delivery. And then you get a call from the chef saying that we clogged their sink with mud. And you quickly learn these lessons that certain things can let slide, but we definitely had to professionalize ourselves over time. That has evolved to, which I think with any kind of movement in general, it evolves and matures and changes. So what used to be kind of warm and fuzzy and felt like a lot more community based, which I do miss a lot of aspects of that, I think is now focused on quality, unique products, and then that sometimes feeling of impossible intersection between quality and value, and that delicate dance of trying to achieve both. And I think there still is opportunity for the story. This is kind of the Venn diagram that I think about when I think about where local food is now. So there is people still care about the story, but I don't think that that's enough anymore. It also has to be followed with quality, consistency of product, consistency of delivery. We have to be as in line with the conventional food system as possible, um, because that's still the reality and the convenience that's out there. And threading that needle sometimes is a challenge, and trying to get as close to that as possible. And really, where there's opportunity, I think, in with local products is there's a lot of unique things here that chefs don't have access to, even if they're not unique in the sense of the farming community, but in terms of access that chefs have to these things, sometimes there's limited choice. You'd think there'd be tons of choice with mainstream distributors, but often they're concentrated on the global products that ship really well and are bred for transport and not for taste. So there's lots of opportunities for just things that are quote unquote regular, but still it's surprising that a lot of chefs don't have access to those things. When I think about what chefs want, and mostly want, obviously there's exceptions here, but I think there's kind of two kind of sides of the coin here. There's the practical stuff, and then there's the warm and fuzzy stuff. So from the practical standpoint, they want clear, concise communication about deliveries, about product availability. They need to be kind of kept in the loop of what's available and what's happening. They are a high-paced environment. It's kind of funny, we've been doing this for 17 years. I joke that we're translators between kind of two worlds. Like there's the farming community, which is a certain pace and expectation, and then there's the chef community, and often they're quite different. So they need to develop a kind of meet in the middle and develop a mutual understanding to really start to be successful. Chefs are also looking for reliable, consistent supply. So if they're putting something on the menu, it's a real challenge for them if it's available one week, not the other. Depends on the chef, of course, but the chalkboard kind of seasonal chef menu is a dream to work with because they're super flexible. In our experience, those have become fewer and further between, especially pre-COVID versus now. There's a lot of pressure to make menus a lot more concise and predictable and share ingredients across many different aspects of the menu. So that kind of flexibility is not what it used to be, at least from our perspective. Consistent sizing and grading, something that might not be a consideration, but when a bag of beets comes into a restaurant and they're processing them, if they're not all the same size and they're constantly have to change what they're doing with their hands and their knives, that's a real challenge. So that's something that we had to learn and work with our farm partners on, just to make sure that they were getting what they expect. It's okay if they're different sizes, but we have to communicate that, and whatever we're sending together should be as consistent as possible. Like I said, the clean product and not covered in mud, on-time delivery, and then value and quality. Put an asterisk here too, because this is that kind of balancing act. People are willing to pay for quality and unique products to a point. There's a ceiling to a lot of these things. And then again, to the more emotional, warm, fuzzy stuff, it varies by chef, but I think all things considered equal, if they can have relationships with the people that grow their food and they have the opportunities to go to farms, it really develops that mutual respect and understanding of the two worlds. Not everyone necessarily has the time to do that, but they definitely value a good story, and both the people and the products. They want to live their own values. I think a lot of people and chefs will purchase certain things in their own personal lives, but the realities of a restaurant might be different, the economic realities. But if there is opportunities to buy things that they care about and value, then obviously they'd love to be able to do that, and they want to feel good about their purchases as well. In terms of lessons learned, I'll probably have to speed up a little bit here. So in terms of when you're developing relationships, especially if you're selling direct to restaurants, don't just focus on the chef. Develop relationships with the sous chefs, the cooks, the line cooks. Within 3 to 5 years, all of those people are going to be at different restaurants, and they're going to take you with them. It's really important that in every relationship, you don't have a single point of contact, that you are casting that and developing those relationships really wide. Stay on top of payments. Restaurants are notoriously bad, and you add in a postal strike, I'll tell you, and it becomes even worse. Really focus on consistency, customer service, and reliability. A chef has patience for things to a point, but they really need to, when they think the product is going to come, it's got to be there, or else that relationship is really tough to sustain long term. Some pitfalls is a lack of diversity in customer type. We still are heavily dependent on independent restaurants. When you have an economic downswing or a global pandemic, that puts you in a very precarious situation. So even within food service, there's hotels, there's institutions, there's small independent retailers. I would encourage anyone to look at as broad a customer base as possible. Again, accounts receivable, either you'll see a pattern here. You really have to be on top of this and make sure that you get paid. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if you're not aware of these accounts falling behind, they will fall behind. And institutional clients, this is kind of a good thing and a bad thing. The Mark Kennys of the world are few and far between in our experience, who I'm sure you're going to hear from later. When we have had success in institutions, when there has been a champion, it's very tough to kind of institutionalize that culture. And often, at least in our experience, when that champion leaves, so does the project. So it's really, it can be precarious if it's not really embedded in the culture, like Mark's been able to do at the University of Guelph. And when the magic happens, I think there's kind of these intersection of things that happens. You get the premium product, which can get the premium price to a point. They're looking for quality. when the best compliment we ever get from chefs is that the ingredients that we provide them, they don't really have to do much with because they speak for themselves. So quality ingredients actually make the chef's life a lot easier. They're looking for unique things, and if you can provide a unique thing, you can really carve out a niche for yourself, and really stress developing those relationships and getting that mutual understanding and respect. Uh, a farm that many of you may know is Brendan Gill from the New Farm. This is an example of a real success story in this space. They were new to farming. They started around the same time that we did, 2007, 2008. Started a small market garden and were doing the Creedmoor Farmers Market. They then developed into wholesale, but they really leaned into developing relationships, bringing chefs to the farm, fostering a real community around their farm and what they're trying to do. And that's really paid dividends. They've also saw an opportunity to work closer with some community food organizations. So Community Food Centers Canada is a partner of theirs. And they've really started to diversify and develop a customer base that is much beyond kind of the fine dining, white tablecloth restaurants, but getting their amazing greens and products into food banks across Southern Ontario, and really got a very strong relationship both from a chef standpoint and a community development standpoint. And I think they are. And the other thing that they've really done too is discovered early on what they do really, really well. So they've really leaned into their salad greens. They used to have dozens and dozens and dozens of products available, and they learned to specialize based on what they were good at, what produced well on their land and their farm, and really specialized as much as they could just to make things as efficient and effective as possible. So when you are choosing to sell to a restaurant, you can either do it alone and directly, which I think definitely has some distinct advantages. So developing those relationships, it's very important, and it's tough to kind of break those up when you develop a direct relationship with a chef, nor should anyone want to. You obviously have control over kind of everything in the process, start to finish. You can capture more of the purchasing dollar and more margin. It has some trade-offs, of course. So the time and the expense of delivery. You are not only your sales and marketing, you are a food producer, you are now sales and marketing, you are now accounting and accounts receivable as well. So there's a lot more elements to that process as well. And then you can also sell through a third party like ourselves. And then obviously a few advantages and kind of inverse of the direct selling, but some potential for broader reach. So ourselves, example, we've been doing this for a long time, but we have over 500 active customers. So the potential reach to a broader customer base with the corresponding volume, less time and energy, and not having to wear all those different hats and do the entire process start to finish. And then in this case, you have someone else collecting the money for you, and which is definitely something that I think there is a value. And then, of course, there are some trade-offs there. So you do lose the potential to lose less transparency and control over the relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So we do our best to have farm tours. We have an annual chef farmer meet and greet. We actually think it's very important that the chef and the producer know each other and have that relationship. But I can't speak for other distributors. Like, that might not necessarily be the case in all the relationships that you could potentially have. And of course, if there's a distributor involved, that they have to run a business as well. And so there's going to be less margin, or the margin is going to be shared for more parties. So you're going to have less from that sale in your pocket. So challenges for both myself continuing to this day and for you. Is I alluded to this before, but having that understanding of the two worlds and the cadence and the realities of a farm life and food and growing food and chef expectations, and really kind of making that understanding meet in the middle. It's tough to compete against the kind of fast-paced culture that chefs are used to. So they historically have gotten on the phone at 10 o'clock at night and placed an order and it's in their hands the next day before lunch. That's the reality. That's the global food system we've created. And we have to, that is our competitor at the end of the day. I don't think we're competing against each other. We're competing against California and the food terminal and Florida and Mexico and everything like that. And then good habits, I think are hard to break, both good and bad. So inertia is a real thing, but when you do get in to a place and they start buying from you, it's hard to disrupt that. So any kind of habit you can form, if it's beneficial to you, obviously, then it's good that it's tough to break, but it's also tough to get people to change what they're used to. Obviously, when we're small, there's lack of economies of scale, so it's a challenge for a small producer, a small distributor to be as cost competitive as some of the larger ones. It really takes time and development of our models to get those efficiencies and get our costs under control. And I think it's not a situation that this field of dreams, like if you build it, they will come. This is an active process. You can't just throw out what you have into the ether and assume that it's going to be adopted. You have to go out there and push it and present it and sell it and find the right partners to be able to help you do that, and develop those relationships. Obviously, macroeconomic trends. This is a challenging environment right now for local food and for restaurants in general. When times are good, there's a lot more flexibility and willingness to spend more on ingredients. And then when the economy turns and not as many people are sitting in restaurants and costs are going up, there's a real pressure to go towards cheaper ingredients, unfortunately, and it puts local food, I think, at a disadvantage at times, and it can be a real challenge to continue to deliver that value, and get the premium that we often need. And then the last time, I promise that I'll mention this, make sure you're getting paid. If you have to spin up a Shopify store and you're selling direct and get paid by credit card, I would encourage you to do so, because at the end of the day, no one's going to have time. We have a full-time person employed to collect our money. You're not going to have that, and if you take your eye off the ball, it's really easy for that to start to balloon. When you do starting out, if you can get a key kind of larger customer on board, that's a very good thing, I would say, but I would quickly try to pivot to make sure you're not dependent on them. Worst case scenario, your relationship in that institution, if it's a champion, leaves and it all kind of quickly dissolves. You don't want to be overly dependent on any one customer. I would probably even say 5% as you mature, but definitely when you're beginning, you don't want any single customer representing more than 10% of your business if you can avoid it. That would make me quite nervous if I was that dependent on a single customer. And then look for partnerships, look for creative ways to piggyback on deliveries. Don't recreate the wheel if you don't have to. It's all these little levers that you need to push and pull to get those efficiencies and get those systems. We're constantly innovating, even up to after 17 years. We're now working with one of our farm partners they're doing some deliveries for us in regions that we don't really have the density, and we're doing some deliveries for them. We're always looking for ways that we can improve, because it's never that straightforward, and it's very costly business to run. And after all that, I don't know if we're leaving questions now or
Yeah, thank you, Paul. That was really great. Really, really good overview. We are short on time, but I do want to get to at least one question here while we have you on the line. So, question here around, how do you build and maintain relationships with farmers? We had a couple of comments early on when we were talking about some of the hurdles that people are facing, and just getting their foot in the door has been a challenge. So how do you, start off and build and maintain those relationships with farmers? And then maybe, what keeps bringing you back to the same farmers as a distributor? So as that broker between restaurants and farmers.
For sure. So, in that sense, a lot of things we're looking for is the same things that chefs are looking for. So, consistency, communication. Um, when we don't, when we don't know what someone has to sell, for example, it's a real challenge for us to sell those products. And then when we need to know what we are expecting because the chefs are expecting certain things too. So we're selling things just in time, for example. So important to context. So farmers let us know what they have available. We're letting chefs know. Chefs are ordering based on that availability. So when that changes or becomes inconsistent and unreliable, then that puts us in a really precarious situation in the middle, and correspondingly, then the chefs get upset with us. So it's kind of a downstream effect there. But really, I think as with anything, like we're looking for good quality, unique products, but we're also looking to work with people that we like.
Hmm.
Relationships run the world, and when we have started to forge those relationships, like we will never drop the new farm under any circumstances. They're friends, and we know their kids, they know our kids. Like
Right.
it's tough to topple that, but obviously that takes time to develop. But I think some mutual respect and understanding and working together towards that goal, I think can really help to speed up
Great.
those relationships.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And just very quickly, because we have a popular question here, is there a best type of restaurant to target as a buy local customer? So
Uh,
characteristics of those types of restaurants that farmers just starting out in this space should look for.
yeah, an independent place. That typically, if you go onto like Open Table or TripAdvisor or something, looking for two plus dollar signs. So somebody that's charging uh, like your value-driven diner is not going to be your customer, probably.
Mm.
So more expensive places, independent places, if they have a chalkboard menu, even better. And then I would, if you're going to go introduce yourself and pop in, bring some product with you because the product says a lot about it, and chefs love free stuff too. So uh,
Right. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Paul, for sharing your expertise with everyone today. Of course, this presentation will be available after the workshop, so folks can take a look back at some of those pros, cons, challenges, opportunities. Really appreciate your time this morning, Paul. Thank you.
pleasure.
All right. Next, I'd like to welcome our panelist speakers for in Ontario, Insights from Businesses on Nurturing Local Food Relationships. So I'd like to welcome Brianna Humphrey, Dr. Genevieve Sarter, and Jackie Fraser to the floor to share their experiences with running a restaurant or institution that buys directly from farmers. So a little bit about our speakers. Brianna Humphrey created Radical Gardens in 2013 after dealing with a severe illness, which was originally an organic farm that had an online farmers market that delivered right to your door. In 2015, Brianna purchased a building that was previously a restaurant, and her partner Steve came on board as well, creating a farm-to-table restaurant in Timmins, featuring an ever-changing menu of house-made items. Since then, they've achieved many accolades, resulting in over 15 awards, as well as expanding into catering, specialty bakery, a food truck, and so much more. Dr. Genevieve Sarter is a postdoctoral research fellow at Lakehead University in the Department of Health and Behavioral Sciences. She specializes in food procurement in Northern Ontario. She's also an owner, chef, and sourdough baker at New Grain Bakery and Kitchen on Manitoulin Island, focusing on naturally leavened bread and locally sourced ingredients that champion the bounty and uniqueness of Northeastern Ontario. And Jackie Fraser owns and operates Freybert's Fresh Food in Fergus with her husband, Chef Derek Roberts. Their family-run shop features locally grown produce, ready-made meals, a deli, pizza counter, and catering services. Jackie's passion for local food began on her family's dairy farm and grew through the farm market work as a teen. As a U of G graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture and Masters of Science in Land Resource Management, she's also completed the Advanced Agricultural Leadership Program. Before becoming an entrepreneur, Jackie had an engaging career in environmental consulting in the aggregate industry and serving as the executive director of agricultural groups concerned about resources and the environment. Jackie is also currently the vice chair of the Ontario Food Terminal Board. So welcome, Brianna, Jackie, and Genevieve. Thank you for joining us this morning. Great to have you. So to start things off, I want to give you all the opportunity just to introduce yourselves and a little bit about your story in a few words. So, Brianna, welcome, and tell us a little bit more about your farm and your journey with Radical Gardens.
So, hello. I started farming in 2014 as stated, to deal with being really ill. And I was working for other farms and selling at the farmers market. And I live in a heavy shift work town. I'm in Timmins. So nobody wants to go to the farmers market at 8 in the morning. And I can totally understand that. So we decided to start building an online farmers market that would aggregate food from Northern Ontario and then distribute it based on what people wanted in their box, a CSA style, without having to be relegated to choose having things in your box that you don't want. So the issue arose really that it was Timmins is a little bit behind on most things. So it was not trusted. People didn't want to use PayPal. They didn't want to use the Shopify store. They didn't trust it. So, and we noticed that they were not purchasing the kind of odder things that we had. So we did basically a year of surveying to discover that they just didn't know what the other things, other than like carrots and potatoes and your, basic lettuce, that they were kind of scared of the ingredients. So we decided to go into prepared food and then offer that on our online store. And in turn, there's not a lot of real estate options in Timmins. So we ended up buying an old restaurant, and and I was talked into opening and actually cooking. So instead of offering online options, we actually ended up opening a restaurant. And it changed its menu every single day because it would depend on what came off my farm and what came off other farmers' farms. And um, it worked for quite a while. And we basically came together as there's not a lot of farmers here. So, and in the Northeastern corridor, we don't have a lot of, actually, we have no distribution. It's an issue. And it's an issue I've been dealing with for about a decade now. So, uh, we have no distribution, and so we decided to be like the catch basin. So if you came to me with a bumper crop, I would flip the menu to get rid of your bumper crop. And that's okay for a couple of years, but that's exhausting and really hard on me. So we since moved to like a more seasonal menu, and we had a bit of a break between farmers that quit in Timmins and the surrounding area. So we had a lull in availability for various products. We since have quite a whole new crop of farmers that have started in the last like 3, 4 years, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing our best to support them and kind of help them sell to restaurants and how to market that, because we also own an organic mushroom farm that does sell to other restaurants and does distribute it and package it and
Right.
ship it around. So, and that's basically where we're at this point. It is not cost effective for any restaurant to flip their menu really anymore. It is so expensive, especially with your labor and your utility cost. So we are actually in the midst of kind of juggling a bunch of stuff, and kind of restructuring actually. But other than that, everything's going actually pretty great.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great introduction, and can't wait to pick your brain a little bit more about that distribution challenge as well. So thank you. Next, I want to go to you, Genevieve. So can you share a little bit about New Grain Kitchen's story just in a couple minutes?
Um, yeah, I just want to quickly follow up on Brianna there that it is extremely difficult switching the menu all the time, but I am one of those chefs whose ambitions were kind of centered on those things. So I started New Grain Bakery and Kitchen 5 years ago on Manitoulin Island during the pandemic. It was seasonal. Sorry, it's been seasonal for the last 2 years, but prior to that, we were year round. It's owning a small business like that in Northern Ontario requires a lot of agility, I think, and ability to be quite dynamic with your who you're sourcing ingredients from. But the backbone of my business has kind of consistently been sourdough bread. So I've also dealt quite a bit with wholesaling in terms of supplying product to grocery stores on Manitoulin. Also quite a lot of farmer organized events where I've done big dining events so that people could meet the farmer that they're sourcing ingredients from, that I was sourcing ingredients from, but also just to kind of put a face to people, which I think is really important and definitely something that New Grain strives for, is not just seasonality in terms of its menu and its sourdough bread, but also the kind of integration I think that's important in terms of educating customers on where they might purchase from. So beyond just having a highly seasonal menu, I also try to bridge the gap between customers that come and eat at my restaurant and then potentially go to, on-farm markets and things like that, so that they're also purchasing directly from farmers themselves. I also do like whole animal dinners to try and teach about eating different cuts of the animal. So often I saw that there was one question about specific cuts that restaurants might order. I usually begin the year by purchasing meat in advance. So I'll buy half a cow and I make my menu work off of the basis of those cuts that come from that animal. And that often makes it easier for the farmer. And also in general, I try and demonstrate to people ways of cooking differently with cuts that they might not necessarily be familiar with. So very much wanting to kind of be a bridge between the consumer and also the farmer, not just as a chef, but also someone who's educating through doing that. And in general, trying to connect different things in the north and forcing myself to kind of educate myself too, in terms of the flour that I get, going and learning, from farmers, going directly to their property and learning about different types of grain, how it behaves, where it's, what's going on with the soil and how that might affect certain
Right.
conditions, and the ingredients that I'm using. And again, having a kind of restrictive menu in the sense that like I don't use olive oil, I don't use lemon juice, I don't use anything basically that's been imported or comes from anywhere other than either Manitoulin or Northern Ontario, and then
That's great.
sometimes with exception Southern Ontario. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you. That's excellent. And Jackie, can you tell us a little bit about Freybert's and maybe how you source from local farmers?
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be part of this panel today. And a lot you mentioned in my bio, but yeah, we created Freybert's Fresh Food back in 2008. We'll be 17 this May coming up. And like Paul, we started our family at the same time. So we opened the doors in May of 2008, and I had my daughter the first week of June 2008, and then had another one 18 months later. So we're a little bit crazy. But we moved to Fergus and realized at that time there was no farmers market. There were no local food shops. My question was, where do people get strawberries in June? It was kind of a bit barren around here for that kind of access to produce and whatnot. So we saw an opportunity. My husband's a chef. So we saw an opportunity to create a store that people could buy local produce, meat, dairy, etc. But also we have ready-made meals and a full-service deli and do catering as well. So as was mentioned in the bio, our focus after 17 years, we still remain focused on local primarily, and we source both directly from some farmers in the area. Comes to mind our organic salad mix we get directly from a farmer. Our eggs, for example, some of our pork and our beef, and then we also source local produce through the food terminal. So I make a weekly trip down there and deal with both farmers and brokers down at the terminal to get local produce. We also, our definition of local is Ontario widely. We do find our customers, they love if it's Wellington County specifically, but as long as we've got the Foodland Ontario logo everywhere, that's a very recognized brand, and it works very well. We also deal with local, so for meat, for local processors. We have quite a few in this area. The Bait Packers up in Arthur for chicken, Domingo's for pork, Harris to Packers for beef and pork. So very blessed in this area to have access to a lot of great local producers and processors.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Jackie. And we've got lots of great discussion questions here for the group. If folks on the line want to put any questions in the Q&A, you're welcome to do that. But so we can get to several of them. I'm going to start maybe with Brianna and then Genevieve. A quick question around Tell us how you've built relationships with local farmers. How do you find them and begin selling their products or using them in your recipes? And then how do you maintain those relationships? So maybe Brianna, I'll start with you.
Well, back when I started, there was no there was maybe two farmers at our farmers market. It was mostly crafters. So I ended up having to drive around through farm roads through most of northeastern Ontario and just find them and ask them if I could buy their produce. They were honestly fairly reluctant to sell to me, even as an online farmers market or even my restaurant. But it was a case of just kind of buying their stuff anyways, and then showing up consistently to buy it. And I ended up just collecting as many farms that were willing to work with us and willing to kind of expand what they were doing, either just selling their own stuff out of their driveway or doing a CSA. And over the last 14 years, I've accumulated basically most of the farmers in northeastern Ontario. Um, and it's just a case of when I see a new one open, I'll either take a drive out to meet them, or I'll make a point to meet them at the farmers market, or I'll give them a call and see what they have. And then I ask them, what are they selling? What's their niche product? What do they do well? What's their pricing structure? Can they get me a list of everything they have? What's their seasonality and basically what they're up to?
Yeah, great. So it sounds like you did a lot of door knocking and networking that way. So for farmers on the line today who are looking to get into selling into your channels, for example, do you recommend just reach out, pick up the phone and make that call and kind of talk about the ingredients you have and what you want to sell? Or
Yeah, and if you're a farmer trying to sell to a chef, like for my farm, we just show up and give chefs boxes of mushrooms with my phone number written on it. And then I'll show up the next week and ask how the mushrooms were because they don't have time. I'm a chef too. I run a couple different things and I get it. I don't have time to call anyone. So I write the phone number on the box, and then whoever is delivering it will show up the next week and ask them how it went, and usually have another box. And then once you develop kind of that relationship, I'll always give the product up for free right out the gate because I want them to just try it. Once you try my mushrooms, I know you'll love them. They're delicious. They're fabulous. They're well grown. So and then I'll usually sometimes do it again if they don't bite, because then they see consistency in delivery, because that is probably one of my biggest issues about buying from
yeah,
farms is consistency in delivery and product. So once I can prove that I'm giving all of those things, and our farm not only sells food, but it also sells to artisan makers because we have a bunch of fowl that we sell feathers to, and they also need consistency in delivery and product. So it's just as long as you can prove that, they'll always typically call you back and start
yeah.
start purchasing from you.
Yeah, great suggestions. And I think it goes back to what we heard from Paul earlier too, the products can speak for themselves when you have delicious local food. Genevieve, what about yourself? Tell us about how you've built relationships with local farmers. Is it similar to Brianna's story where you're door knocking, you're making calls, or do you have people coming to you asking how you could use their ingredients?
I did quite a lot of door knocking also because I am not originally from Northern Ontario and I was very curious about how things were done. And so I also just like to kind of understand the details of a product. Like if there's a specific breed, I want to know all about it. I want to know about topsoil. I find it interesting. I also, again, when anyone asks about my menu, I like to be quite fluent in all sort of facets of it. I like building relations. I like asking the stronger the connection between myself and a farmer, the more that I can kind of anticipate even the following year's menu and what we might do together. So there was quite a lot of that. So I sort of began with the bread very, very kind of conservatively the 5 years ago, as I was talking about, and then would just show up with a loaf of bread and a lot of
Hmm.
questions and try different product. And also to me, it was sort of important to kind of establish a map of Manitoulin of just what different farmers were doing and to achieve a balance in who I was sourcing from. So, where was my chicken coming from versus my lamb versus my beef so that everybody's sort of included. And, it's interesting when Paul was talking before about the sort of dirty beats. If I'm dealing with someone who's just maybe getting on their feet as a farmer and perhaps as a first time farmer, maybe they just don't have the staff and can't afford the staff to have that kind of thing, organized for them as opposed to a larger scale farmer where everything might be, all the lettuce leaves are clean and everything else, salad greens. So it was also just trying to see where I could be supportive, in order to ensure an even distribution of who I was sourcing from. Because in my third year, I had two locations, one at a brewery on Manitoulin split rail. So my volume became quite tremendous. And I wanted to make sure that I could use that purchasing power as effectively as possible to sort of take everyone along with me. So a lot of conversations, a lot of tasting, a lot of sampling. I also agree it's fantastic when someone actually approaches you at a certain stage. Farmers just started to reach out to me in general saying, what I got, or, if you want, I can age this for an extra however many months for you, or are you interested in this particular type of variety that I'm growing? And so again, just to be able to kind of creatively work with farmers about ingredients that they're proud to grow and raise and have those sorts of conversations contributes to my creativity on the plate. And also,
Hmm.
it just makes for a more beautiful working experience when you're dealing with ingredients and you know the story behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So Jackie, I have a question for you, because I know you see a lot of customers come in and out every day. So what kinds of questions or comments do you hear from customers about locally sourced food you provide? So, for the farmers joining today, what are customers wanting to learn more about when it comes to their food that they're purchasing?
Yeah, our customers tend to be more interested in how their food is grown and produced than compared to a Walmart customer, so to speak. They're coming here specifically because they do care a little bit more about how it got to the store. Um, they love a story. That was mentioned in the previous presentation. It's great to have. I've started actually putting together supplier profiles for all of our growers, sort of chipping away at that throughout the year. And having a picture of the growers out at their farm and a little story about how they started, and people just really, really love that. I of course do get questions about, is this organic and GMOs and those kinds of things. In general, which my previous background prepared me well for, so I enjoy having those conversations with customers.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I really find they're not as hooked on sort of the labels or does it have to be certified organic or does it have to be whatever. They just really, they want to know the story behind it. They want to see a face. They want to see the family behind it. They trust us. And so if they, we over 16, 17 years, we built that kind of relationship with our customers, and they know that if I'm comfortable bringing it into the store, it's something they can trust to take home to their family. So really, my advice to farmers wanting to get into restaurants and retail shops is be open, have some photos available, have a little story that we can share on our social media, have up in the store, that kind of thing. That goes a long, long way.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And Brianna and Genevieve, does that resonate with you as well? Anything to add to the conversation?
The one thing that I would like to add is the other thing that I do with the farmers in the area is we'll have a discussion at the beginning of February when most things need to be propagated. And I'll like being as I've been a farmer for so long, I would like black radishes for the end of summer. Could one of you grow that? And then because I like to keep it fair, as Genevieve was saying, I like to incorporate as many farmers as I can, because if we're all doing and growing, then we're all doing great, right? So I will suggest that they pick niche products to sell to me, and I will recommend those products because I know I'm going to use them. And then I know their consistency and size and all that stuff, fun stuff. So if I'm after, hey, I would like, yellow tomatoes for the summer, I'll make sure that one of my farmers is growing that so that they can guarantee that they know I'm going to purchase that because that's the product I'm after. And that's really helped because I find that a lot of farmers that when they start, everybody's growing the same thing when you go to the farmer's market. And that's not conductive to me because I want to support everybody. So everybody needs to pick things that, like Paul suggested, that they're really good at, or is a niche product, and that really helps you market your stuff to restaurants, opposed to like I'm a market gardener and I grow all these things or I raise all these things. Um, but working as a chef, working with them too, especially new farmers, to develop some sort of niche product that they can then sell to me has worked really well.
Right. So yeah, keeping that sort of two-way flow of communication and maybe having for the farmers on the line to be open to those conversations around like, I'd really like this specific product. Can you grow that this year? So building those relationships. And Genevieve, I see you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to actually say something quickly about price point as well. Like perhaps if I'm, I have my place at the brewery, we're doing pulled pork, we're ripping through it. I'm not necessarily going to choose the kuni that's been, like fed acorns and apples for X amount of time and costs X amount per pound. However, if I have some big wigs who have a wedding coming up and they're interested in having this like exclusive pork, then I will bring out kind of the big guns. So it always interests me no matter what to know what product is available, even if it doesn't mean that I can always afford it, because there might be an occasion in which I can. Or I might also, again, meet a certain type of customer client that comes into my restaurant. They're there to spend big bills and they want to go and have like the fanciest that the island can possibly provide. And so it's still helpful. And that's also how I kind of make my choices when it comes to the way that I purchase. Obviously, taste for sure, but sometimes there's also just like, budget that you have to meet, and so you can't always have every kind of dream piece. But again, I try and find ways to fit it in when possible. Just wanted to
Yeah.
mention that as well.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to talk a little bit about maybe what's one of the maybe a common learning curve that farmers may experience when first selling into a restaurant or a market like yours, and then are there tools or resources that you could recommend to help overcome that learning curve? And then we have a couple of audience questions that I want to get to before our time is up. So maybe I'll start with you, Jackie. Any of those learning curves that farmers might experience? What should people be aware of on the line today?
Yeah, it's a lot was covered previously, but it's for me, be persistent. So come in, or give us a call, or however you want to reach out. But a lot of we have dozens of requests every week of, I have the best barbecue sauce, I have the best, you need to have this on your shelves, and it's ridiculous the amount of samples we have at the back of the store at any given time, or try this, try that. So you really need to be above that. Like you need to be persistent, because you might get lost in sort of the shuffle. So don't be shy. Like call back, follow up, drop off product, but follow up, because if you just leave it here once, odds are I'll never get around to getting back to you unless it's something I've been really specifically looking for. So don't be shy, be persistent. Be aware of what your product sells for in retail. We have certain margin targets we have to make, or we don't stay in business. So be aware of what I am able to sell your product for and how much margin I need to be able to get out of the relationship as well to stay in business. So just some knowledge on that. That's probably the one biggest thing that I've had in the past, specifically with dealing directly with some farmers that, they're like, well, they come to me and they're, well, here's the price, and it's what I can buy it at Zehrs for. And I'm like, yeah, I need a little room to make some margin on that. So just doing a bit of research on that as well. But I think, the main thing is getting involved and being persistent. I found a lot of my growers just through most counties have, buy local, maps or whatever organizations. I literally, when we opened the store, I just went through my map and started calling people. So get involved. That's where we're looking, especially when we're starting off. But for established businesses, yeah, come in, bring product, say hi, be persistent, keep calling for sure.
Yeah, that's great. And kind of goes back to Brianna's comments earlier about freebies are great. People like to taste the product, but you have to be consistent and sort of following up and showing them that you'll be there. And great point about the local food maps. I know in addition to some of the farmers on the line today, we have economic development folks. So those maps are hugely helpful to local businesses. I want to ask a question, quickly here for you, Jackie, from the audience. Do you have your farmers attend the market for customers to meet them? So have you ever brought a farmer in to do a meet and greet?
Oh, absolutely. We every year for our birthday party in May, we bring in suppliers and growers and have them sample out their wares, and we get great crowds. I always kind of giggle thinking, wow, everybody comes to celebrate our birthday. It's so cute. But our customers love that. They, again, because that's the kind of customers we tend to attract. They love connecting with the growers and suppliers. So we love those opportunities. So we do that specifically. That's a big event in May. I used to have kind of a harvest festival in September. That's kind of died off a bit since COVID, but happy to bring suppliers in on any, especially on a Saturday when we're busy, and I know they'll get to see a lot of faces. We love those opportunities. They're wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. Good opportunities for farmers and also your customers. So that's good. A question, I'm not sure which panelist might want to take this one. How do you organize timelines for fresh meat cuts coming from the butcher for your restaurant or market? Brianna, go ahead. You look like you're
I'll
itching to
take
answer
that.
that one.
So for me, I only have two abattoirs where I am. So you have two options. And there's only one hanging butcher in the entire area. So for me, most meat sellers that are like meat raisers and meat producers, I request a specific abattoir because I like how they work. And it has to go through my butcher's hands. They can't just bring it to the other abattoir and then drop me off a bunch of mangled cuts. This has happened to me repeatedly. So now the consistency in cut and the consistency in my butcher's work, and usually like I for him, it depends on kind of where we are in the year, but he would need at least a week to 2 weeks heads up. So bare minimum.
Right.
Depending on what you want and like if you want it aged or whatever you might want to do with it. But really making sure that your proteins are going to the right abattoir and then getting a relationship with a butcher that already has an existing relationship with restaurants will help you move your proteins. But just taking it to the abattoir and getting them to package it oftentimes results in insanity. Like the restaurants are getting, like I've received pork chops that are like this thick on one side and they taper down to this side, and I'm heading to a giant event, 200 people. I'm expecting a specific cut. For this time it was a feast on the farm by Culinary Tourism, and our pork chops are so mangled and we're cooking over a fire. Like we really need consistent cuts.
Right.
Having one side paper thin is
Yeah.
kind of nuts. Another thing is like for me, I often will purchase things 5 months ahead of time because I'm up to a science project or whatever. So I'm asking the farmer to bring it to the abattoir or the butcher, and I want a very specific cut. Do not deviate from that very specific cut. And also
Right.
think about it in the context of like, don't drop me off a garbage bag filled with pork loins that are all frozen together in a big lump. Don't do that. Have them all separated, have them all packaged, have them consistent. And that's really like for me, that's all I need, really.
Yeah.
And
Right.
like make sure that you have a relationship with a really good butcher that alone will help you market your proteins to restaurants because they're already calling that guy.
Yeah, no, that's great. So making sure you know your butcher and what their products look like. And I saw some head nods from our other panelists as well. And Genevieve, as someone who also caters those events, it looked like that was maybe stressing you out too. So great advice. Thank you, Brianna. Well, this was really excellent. So thank you so much to you all, Jackie, Genevieve, and Brianna for sharing your expertise today. Really helpful discussion. And it was great to have you. So thank you so much. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. For now, I'd like to move on to our next presentation. So an introduction to the FeastON program. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Kshitij Ratan. Kshitij is a culinary professional and advocate for local food systems, overseeing the Culinary Tourism Alliance's FeastON program. With a postgraduate degree in food tourism entrepreneurship from George Brown, he drives sustainable growth by supporting chefs, producers, and food tourism businesses across Ontario. A trained chef with a degree in culinary arts, he brings a wealth of experience from his career in luxury hospitality and fine dining. His expertise in food systems, sustainability, and tourism development underscores his commitment to strengthening local food communities and promoting culinary excellence. So I'll encourage everyone as well, again, to continue to post your questions in the Q&A. Welcome, Kshitij. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Krista. Morning. Thanks for having me. And it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully I can be of value to those here.
Yeah, that's great.
Great.
Would you like to share your screen?
Sure. Okay. All right. There we go.
Looks good.
Right? Perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Kshitij, and I oversee the FeastON program here at the Culinary Tourism Alliance. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here and thrilled to tell you more about the Culinary Tourism Alliance and the FeastON program. And I think it's a perfect time, as you all have got to hear from Paul and Brianna, who are both part of the FeastON family. And I'm going to leave my email here towards the end of the slides in case any of you have questions and would like to connect later on. So yeah, let's get into this. Okay, so founded in 2006, we are a not-for-profit organization that's working to bridge the gap between the food, the drink, and the travel industries. And simply put, we are here to, and we strive to grow food tourism in Ontario and across Canada. Just a little high overview of our organization. We have three broad pillars, one being consulting, one being marketing, and the third being programming. Consulting is done by our professional services team that works directly with destinations in sort of just developing food tourism strategies. We work very closely with DMOs and RTOs to just leverage and figure out a destination's culinary assets and to be able to create or further augment that taste-to-place offering. Number two is marketing, and they're, I say, the true storytellers of what we do, and they're the ones that share your taste-to-place offerings with the audience and further work in amplifying the voice of local business operators. And third, but not least, is programming. We do a bunch of things, and that's where the FeastON program lives alongside with our events team. And I'd like to believe us to be the boots on the ground. And we're constantly working with our FeastON event, with our FeastON network, to create some damn delicious events. And we're constantly working with industry partners to collaborate with on new initiatives all the time. For example, we're partnering with Tourism Kingston for an activation during the King's Delicious event. We're going to feature a few of our chefs that collaborate with local restaurants and stuff like that. We have ongoing industry events called FeastON Mixers that happen. One was here in Toronto last month. We have one in early Feb in Kitchener. We've got one in Kingston in March. So there's just a lot going on the horizon, essentially. Let's move on. So I'd like to touch a bit on agritourism. I'm sure this is not new to most of you all, but agritourism is a subset of culinary tourism that focuses on the production side of things. So it can be focusing on the unique processes or the people or the places that are involved. And we are fortunate right now to be in a space with a bunch of growers and producers such as yourselves, can be current or prospective farmers. And if you were to develop an experience surrounding your farm, that's something that could generate additional revenue or footfall. And let me just move to the next slide. Yeah, so here we go. Engaging in agritourism activities, it could be like asparagus picking, or it could be apple picking in this case. It could be even enjoying a local a picnic of seasonal goods in a conservation area, or maybe a guided fishing trip that culminates in a shore lunch by a local chef. All of this embodies the essence of food tourism. The people have spoken, and they're hungry for local food, and I cannot emphasize this enough when I say consumers want to see more locally produced foods in stores, in markets, and in restaurants. And people are asking questions, and they're being more mindful of where the ingredients are being sourced from. And I personally feel that this is the only sustainable way going forward. Right, so that brings me to what is FeastON. Started in 2014 with about 30 businesses at that time, and now with over 150 businesses. FeastON is North America's largest and longest running local food and beverage certification program of its kind. FeastON recognizes businesses across the food tourism value chain that are committed to sourcing Ontario grown food and drink. I'll tell you a bit more about the value chain in a couple of slides, but to be certified, you're simply required to prove that your production or procurement practices showcase a minimum standard of Ontario ingredients. That being said, we do audit the businesses based on their procurement or production practices of local ingredients to show that they aren't just talking the talk when it comes to supporting local, but they're actually walking the walk too. And yeah, we get asked this quite a bit. What is local food? And for food, as discussed by Jackie earlier on, we use Foodland's definitions, meaning of local, meaning that the ingredients must be grown, raised, or produced within Ontario. And for wine, we use the VQA standards to be able to identify eligible wineries to work with. Right. Coming back to the concept of building out a food tourism value chain, and this is our FeastON network. And when we say it takes a village to create a movement, these are the four crucial pillars that make this possible. There are our partners, distributors, growers and producers, and restaurants and experiences. I feel the most important part and the backbone to all of this is the growers and producers that make all of this happen. We work with farmers, cheesemakers, winemakers. It can be a brewery, distillery, or a cidery for that matter. As for restaurants and experiences, this covers not only food service establishments. We work with food trucks, pop-ups, catering companies, for example. For distributors, 100 km Foods is another member of the CTA who we work very closely with. When it comes to partners, we work closely with our DMOs. We do have relationships with sector and commodity groups as well. Dairy farmers of Ontario, Canada Beef, etc. We have industry partners as well that just make this collaborative effort so much more meaningful and just a powerful driver to food tourism. Right here is a screenshot of our FeastON businesses plotted on a map. As you can see, we're a small but mighty group that's expanding our presence across Ontario at the moment. Right, now let's jump into a few of the feel-good factors, or feel-good benefits to being FeastON, and it's about being identified as a values-driven and community-forward local business. Secondly, you've got the entire CTA and FeastON network to sort of guide you through. It's a network of like-minded people that believe in similar principles that you do. You of course do have the CTA team for any capacity building or unique programming that you all might need assistance with. We've got a consumer audience that's hungry and thirsty that comes with its own set of marketing benefits. And for those B2B businesses, I will talk about some industry-facing benefits in a few slides. Right, so marketing benefits for our consumer audience. Now, this includes food service establishments, can be wineries, craft beverage producers, can be restaurants that have a tasting room. For example, it can be agritourism operators that have a visitor-facing or a retail store up front. So the benefits include, number one is FeastON collateral, meaning you get an official FeastON certificate of designation along with access to logo rights and other promotional materials. Again, this can be used on your socials, on your website, can be printed out and displayed at your business as well. You get subscribed to our FeastON newsletters that help keep you up to date with what's happening in FeastON land, and as well as the local food and beverage industry. You have exclusive invitations to events and participation callouts to our various events that keep happening. Brianna mentioned we had a successful Feast on the Farm event in Timmins in September. We had one in Kingston after that, and it was just amazing. So we do have event opportunities. As I mentioned, we're in the planning stages of some interesting events coming up with our partners at Parks Canada. We have something with Restaurants Canada coming up next year. So exciting times are coming up. You also get exclusive invitations and discounts to other industry events and workshops that keep happening on a constant basis. You get a unique profile. So you get a unique landing page that's created on our website, ontarioculinary.com, which can be, again, furnished with relevant business information. You can put up pictures, backlinks to your website, and etc. All of this just basically further driving traffic back to you. You have the opportunity to provide us with content. So with digital ads, it can be blog posts or something of that sort that our marketing team can work with and help, again, further augment your offerings. We have an events calendar which you can use to feature any upcoming events or anything that you all would like to help and maximize your reach in. And yeah, so it's there is honestly so much value to the certification that it's crazy. And I often use the analogy of a gym membership to describe the benefits that you get, being you get as much out of it as you put into it. So yeah, let's jump in. This right here is a screenshot on the right. If you see, is a screenshot of the landing page of one of our businesses. We've got content that's pulled out from their Instagram on the top. We have contact details below, along with a little map and a little description about the businesses that they work with, for example. On the top left is a screenshot of our monthly newsletter that gets sent out. This one is for our members in the Niagara region, for example. And down below is just a screenshot of our front-facing Instagram page, Ontario Culinary. Right, let's move into the marketing benefits for the industry audience, so for B2B businesses. Now here, this is for growers and producers that have the capacity to sell to food service. And adding to Brianna's point, chefs are looking for reliability, for consistency, and for quality. And most of the benefits are identical, I feel, but you get a profile on culinary-tourism-alliance.com, which is our industry-facing website. Respectively, you get love on our industry-facing social handles, culinary-tourism-alliance.com. Apart from that, you get the same event opportunities, invitations, discounts to events, workshops, etc. You also get an exclusive personalized introduction, if you'd like to do so, with the rest of our FeastON network to again help you grow your business and help reach your business goals. This is again a snippet of our B2B facing benefits. It looks a bit different from our consumer facing ones, but essentially it's very similar. On the left hand side, you can see that it's a screenshot of our website, and that's what your page would look like. On the right, screenshots of newsletters and Facebook posts that are all done by our marketing by marketing. Yeah. Right. So we work with a select few set of businesses each year, with around 160 certified businesses at the moment. We're limiting our memberships to only those that are truly passionate for the cause, and mainly we'd like you to embody the FeastON manifesto. That is to procure local food, identify the origin of these items on your menu, be able to track and trace the purchases, and eventually champion Ontario local produce. There is a criteria for food service. We're looking at 25%. So 25% of your annual food and alcohol receipts need to showcase Ontario-grown food and locally made beverages. For agritourism producers, we've that have a visitor-facing experience. Again, is another criteria that we're looking out for. For growers and producers, it's of course the capacity to sell to food service. This being an annual certification, comes at a cost of $500 per business per year, which comes out to about $40 per month. And I feel that the value that you get for this is it's tremendous. It is truly tremendous value that you get for this. if you have any more questions, need to look out for any more information, it can all be found on our website, culinaryytourismalliance.com. You can follow us on our socials. Culinary Tourism Alliance is our industry-facing handle, and Ontario Culinary is our consumer-facing handle.
Thank you, Kshitij. That was a really great overview of the FeastON program. And I know you had mentioned earlier that you were going to leave your email in the chat there for anyone on the line who wants to reach out about opportunities to leverage the FeastON network for their farm business. So thank you so much. That was really great. Appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. I'm
Great.
just going to leave it in right now. There you go.
Excellent. Thank you. So for everyone on the line, you can click on the chat box and Kshitij has left his email there for you. So great. Thank you so much. So next, I'd like to introduce our second panel for the day and our final panel. So I want to welcome Woody Darling, Tracy Bechtel, and Mark Kenny to talk about strengthening partnerships from farm to fork. So a little bit about our speakers this morning. Mark Kenny is the Senior Manager of Procurement, Planning and Operations at the Hospitality Services within the University of Guelph and is accredited by the National Institute of Supply Chain Leaders. He's worked in the hospitality industry since day one and is passionate about local food, local music, and global education. Mark's love for local food procurement and sustainability has allowed him to be involved in a lot of unique projects and to volunteer with regional committees and organizations. One of those, Taste Real Guelph Wellington Local Food, appointed him to be their first local food ambassador in 2012. His motto is eat well and laugh often. I'd also like to welcome Tracy Bechtel. She is the produce specialist at Flanagan Food Service. Her career has been with the family-owned and operated company for 34 years. She has extensive food service knowledge in the independent restaurant businesses and was a territory manager with Flanagan's for 20 years in the Guelph area. And Woody Darling has nearly 40 years of experience in the food service industry. His first 20 years were spent in various roles within the restaurant sector. For the past 2 decades, he's worked in food distribution, first as a territory manager and currently as the district sales manager at Flanagan Food Service with a team of 8 sales representatives. So welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. So to start things off, maybe I want to just do a quick round with you all, a little bit about yourselves. So Mark, I'll start with you. If you could tell us just a little bit about yourself and your passion for local food.
Sure. I'll keep it short because I know we are short on time. Um, Basically, the really short story is at the age of 14, I was hired by a restaurant in Grand Bend. I started a dishwasher. They made me a cook because they had no cooks. Eventually ended up working the back of the house, managing the kitchen, a bunch of other restaurants over the years. Little at the time that I know that 40 years later, be managing inventory, logistics, procurement, contracts, supply chains, but on a professional career level. At the University of Guelph when I started classes in 1991. I'm still there. So, bit of a piece of furniture in some regards that way. Um, Along the way, I learned to become a passionate home cook. I think thanks to my mom and my dad for having a great kitchen for me to work in when I was young and to teach me a love about food and local food. We had great, I lived in Stratford. We had great farmers and suppliers and food for our table. So I sort of took that and moved along into, working with Taste Real, as you mentioned, buying at the Elmira produce auction. Anita Stewart was a huge influence on me. And the various chefs that I've had the fortunate time to work with as suppliers to Guelph, and the farmers who supply us and our distributors and all that. The big key for me, really, in procurement and this whole sort of journey was a commitment to education. So I learned in about '05 that you could actually study to become a professional procurement manager. So I did that in Supply Chain Management Association. And my goal was to have credentials to be able to actually do this as a career. And here we are, just hanging out and having fun and learning from each other, really. It's the best thing you possibly ask for.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Mark, and certainly a local food champion. Great story. Woody, can you share a little bit more about Flanagan's food service itself and maybe your role there and how you work with farmers?
Sure, absolutely. So, good morning, everybody. It's been an outstanding morning. There's some great information being shared, and it's I'm even learning, which is amazing. So, I'll leave some of the details of Flanagan's to Tracy because she's been around Flanagan's a lot longer than I have. But my job and what I do is, coming from a background of being in the restaurant business. I was a corporate chef for a company, and I traveled across the province and opened restaurants and kind of flipped over, as we call it, to the dark side and got into sales about 20 years ago. I've sort of never looked back. So I'm a real foodie at heart. But one of the things that I do is I work with people like Tracy, who helps to procure products and bring it in. And then I take that and go out and sell it to the chefs in the restaurants. So I utilize the stories that are created by manufacturers and farmers and vendors, and we relay that information to help share that story. I've heard a lot of fantastic things today, and certainly some of the questions early on that got posted about, what to do with offcuts and pricing and collections and various things like that. Those problems are very real. And even us as a large distributor here in Ontario, we face those very same challenges that you do. So we're all in the same boat together. So any questions that you have, please ask away. And I would just give real kudos to Paul and his presentation today. He was absolutely spot on. Everything he said there was absolutely fantastic. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Woody. It's great. And Tracy, welcome. Tell us a little bit more about your role and how you work with farmers, and maybe a little bit more about Flanagan's and your history there.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So yes, I've been with Flanagan's for almost 34 years. I started inside and worked my way outside as Woody, as well as a territory manager. So I was the Guelph territory manager for 20 years. And the last 18 months, I kind of came inside to see the inside dealings on the procurement side and the crazy world on the inside of buying and purchasing products. So Flanagan's is the largest Canadian owned and operated food service distributor in Canada. We supply restaurants and healthcare and all different segments of the food service area that would require food products. We have 10,000 products that we have listed in our building, and we distribute every day all over Ontario. It started out of a station wagon. The old story of, Joe Flanagan started his business, saw a need for independent restaurants wanting, products shipped directly to them, and it has grown into where we are today. I have worked here this long because it is a family owned and operated company, and it has those values. And you can literally walk into anyone's office, ask questions, and get answers right away. So it is such a great company. We have 3 warehouse locations, one in Kitchener, one in Whitby, and one in Sudbury that we try to service all of Ontario.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm going to start off with a question for Woody and Tracy, and I'll mirror Woody's comments earlier. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat there, and maybe we can even circle back to one or two that we were unable to answer earlier. So Woody and Tracy, can you tell us more about some of the different markets that purchase your products? Who are your buyers? What are they looking for in their local food? So, for example, do the demands or interests in food characteristics vary depending on the buyer that you're working with?
Absolutely, for sure. And we, as Tracy said, we sell to a wide variety of customers, everything from farmer markets through to, restaurants, roadhouse pubs, right through to healthcare facilities, nursing homes. We also do some chain business and stuff like that. But yeah, the products that are the chefs are looking for and the owners are looking for, can wear, they're a wide variety of products and a wide level of quality. We have some people that are looking for Ontario Wagyu beef, right down to just, Ontario AA product, those types of things. So we have to have a wide variety of products to meet the demands of what our consumers are looking for, or our customers are looking for.
Right. And Tracy, anything to add there in terms of, the different demands or interests in those different food characteristics for each of your buyers?
Yeah, so a lot of the restaurant level, as we've seen, the chalkboard style menus and stuff would be, areas that we would try to reach out and try and find those niche items for those restaurants. Again, us being a large scale food distributor, we kind of have limited SKUs that we can list, so we can't list 1 and 2 items of certain things. So it gets a little bit difficult, but we try to source as much as we can with what we have to work with.
Yeah, that's great. Mark, I want to hand it over to you for a moment here. So can you tell us what customers look for when sourcing from local farmers? Are there any trends that you've noticed in the last couple of years that you think farmers should know about?
Yeah, so our customers, because I'm really just the procurement side of the business, so I'm kind of in the middle, but um, our customers are really like, I'm assuming a lot of people on the call today, your 17 to 21-year-old kids coming to us to study. Um, I like to say, come for the education, stay for the food. Um, and I think it's a real testament to what our chefs can do on campus with the food that we buy. So from a food on the kids' plates perspective, I think they're a pretty sophisticated bunch with help from our chefs. They really love great flavors, exploring new food choices. They're very open to trying new things. Again, we're fortunate enough to have a great team of chefs on campus, a really diverse background of nationalities on campus, that their their flavors and their tastes really show up on the plate. It's authentic. It's not something you can just pretend, right? We have we're interesting. We're not like a regular restaurant we've been talking about all morning. We're there 7 days a week for a solid 8 months, and same customer every single day, but a brand new customer every September, which is really hard because we don't necessarily know what they actually like or what their tastes are until about Thanksgiving, let's say. Um, and the only way that the quality food that happens that our chefs can put on our plate for our students is the best quality ingredients, and that's really what we look for, right? So all the things that everyone's talked about today, from you know costs, and we have a little bit different model because we're a city within a city. We're feeding 25,000 people a day. It's the economies of scale are huge. But we've got local ingredients right in our backyard. We live in the most agricultural rich part of Canada, I would argue. We've got our own apiary on campus. We've got our own organic farm. Our chefs actually have their own growing houses on campus. We support the produce auction. We and Currently we're not at the auction. I think one of the really important things to note here is that since COVID, the rules have changed a lot. The amount of time we can actually spend on cultivating as much local product as we possibly can on campus has changed. People's roles have changed. So it's not, my big career focus on local food has changed quite a bit in the last 5 years. Um, because everybody, unfortunately, in our business, and I mean our business, the restaurant business, this food service business in general, everybody is so busy just trying to stay afloat, I think, because there's less people. There's all these issues, that we don't get to spend the amount of time that we're really passionate about on the things that maybe we used to do. And I can touch on that a little bit more here, which is really unfortunate. I know Paul said it really well. There's a lot of things you got to focus on what you're really good at. Sometimes you don't get a chance to focus on the things that you actually want to do, which is unfortunate. But we all have to put a roof over our heads and food on the table and all those things, right? So trend wise, I mean, it's no big secret that plant-based menus can't be ignored. We have many on campus. Our executive chef is very big on plant-based proteins and meals. But we also offer flex, and we make most of our products on campus. We don't buy in frozen lasagna. We make all those things because we're so fortunate to be able to have the number of chefs that we do. Everybody's scrambling for staff. We're very lucky that we have a good complement and enough staff to feed those 25,000 people. So, for example, even though we do a ton of plant-based um, meals, we do like at the University Center at the Royal City Grow, we have a sustainable smash burger. It's 50% Ontario beef, then the rest is 50% oats, quinoa, and mushroom. It's a really great burger. I don't think, when we promote it as just really great food. We've always, I mean, for years, we've had two counters, two food outlets on campus in the main dining halls. One's called Nature's Best, which is all vegetarian, vegan. The other is Mom's Kitchen, which is more home style cooked meals. And we have plant-based foods on both of those. So it's a real mix. It's more plant-based foods than we've ever had before in the past. I think traditionally, I would say since I went to school in 91, I think our demographic is still about 60% female, which I think back in the day drove that plant-based, although nobody called it back then that. It was vegetarian, it was vegan, but now for us, we just want to showcase that we have really great food and really great ingredients. So definitely plant-based. And again, just not processed plant-based for us, right? Because we are making it ourselves. So, and the other thing I want to really point out to, and we really stick to our raw ingredients are super important to us, because we make the majority of things from scratch. So we put a lot of focus onto our distribution networks, and our suppliers to provide those ingredients. As a number of people alluded to this morning, we are very flexible. We have to be. We don't set our menus and then we don't change them. We can add in specials. We can pivot just as much as a small independent restaurant can for our menus, because we have so many. We have 18 different locations on campus, that being coffee shop to full service restaurant like Krillman. But we don't. And as I said, we don't have necessarily, and I certainly don't have the time to commit to the amount of specific local food procurement that I've done over the last number of years. But we've also, in a sort of succession planning type situation where I think again Paul noted that, when somebody's a local food champion and they leave their position, how do you continue that, right? So one of the key things is to have a relationship like the farmers and the suppliers and the distributors, to have a relationship not only with somebody who's in procurement, but have a direct relationship with the chef. My role is really to deal with contracts and put people together. I'm not the one who gets to decide on what's on our menus, but I can make those connections. But as Paul said, you need to really have all those relationships, not just with me, because I don't make the final decision. And I grew up in the restaurant business. I'm a great cook, and I know the things. Thankfully, I know the things that we're doing on campus. It's not the old school procurement where you've got procurement here, you've got chefs here, and nobody talks. And like we're a very focused group of individuals who,
Right.
trend wise, again, back to plant based, but it's really just the best possible food on the plate. So we rely 100% on what farmers and what suppliers can bring to us and how they do that.
Okay.
Logistics wise is super, super crucial for us.
Yeah. And so Tracy and Woody, I see you've been, nodding as Mark's been talking. And I think, hearing from some of the people on the line today who are really looking to get into this space, and how do you, break into that space? How do you get your foot in the door, so to speak? Is that the relationship building aspect has come up several times. So yeah, wondering if you want to speak to that.
Sure. I think Mark brought up a really good point, and that is to understand the structure of who you're trying to sell to. I noticed a couple of comments about getting paid. You might be selling to the chef, but the chef isn't the one who cuts the check or makes the payment. So you need to understand the entire organizational setup of that customer. Who's the owner? Who's going to do the ordering? Who's going to cut the check or pay the bill? Who's going to receive the order? And and so on. So I think that that's really important to do that. That's one of the things you want to do your research. And sometimes you can find this out online by looking at their profile or even their Instagram page or whatever. But spend some time to do that for sure. Um, and really the biggest thing is you want to establish the relationships with the people that are going to help you, such as a Mark who helps control maybe the pricing and various things like that, down to then the chef who's going to take that item and create something and put it on their menu, and be able to work with them. So, a couple things you might want to look at is when you're preparing your story, that Venn diagram of the unique products that was shown there, I think is really key. You want to be able to, let them know you've got constant supply, that, tell them what your story is, who you are, so that they can then put that onto their menu. One of the things that's really, I think, helpful is, you want to have some marketing materials available for the customer when they put it on their menu, they can say, this is the business that it came from and this is where it's located. Consumers are much more attracted to that. They're also much more willing to pay a little bit more money to know that they're getting something that is local, sustainable, from Ontario, from an Ontario produced business, a family run business. All of those things add value. And then the restaurant themselves can actually, afford to pay a better price for it and then charge a little bit more. Because our consumers, as Mark was saying, are quite educated now. They understand the global marketplace. So, just keep some of that stuff in mind when you're going in and doing your research.
Mm. Yeah, and I want to actually also go back to a couple of comments that we had earlier on about challenges, and I think a couple of people have brought up, volume being a challenge. So, as a distributor who sells into so many of these different channels, how do you manage volume, and how do you work with farmers to set those expectations around seasonality and how much volume they should be supplying or could supply?
So I'll talk on this one because I'm on the inside doing that type of business. So consistency has been brought up many times. We need to make sure that we have consistent product, consistent volumes all the time. Because we are supplying all of Ontario, we have 3 different distributor locations that we need that product in all 3. We kind of want all of our locations having the same product, the same items to offer to sell to their restaurants. So that might be a logistic, problem for some of the farmers, having proper vehicles delivering into these locations because we are a HACCP certified warehouse. We are going through another certification to have a higher level of certification. So we are looking at having, our vendors have those certifications as well. So working with those and making sure that everything is safe for everybody that we are selling our products to. We do have vendor relationships, and those are the key to our success. And, partnering with the right vendors has been our vision, and making sure that, everyone has a proper share in the market. We deal with the food terminal most of the times. So that would be probably the best direction that we could have people go to right now, because of our 3 locations being in such wide variety of the province.
Right. Great. Thank you. I want to ask, oh, go ahead, Woody.
Sorry, I was just going to add to, when you're doing your research and looking at things, understand the peaks and valleys of the businesses that you're going to. You want to plan 6 months out if you're selling, if you've got a beef product and you want to sell, ribeye or whatever it is through the Christmas season, and you're going to have ample supply. You can't walk in at Christmas time and sell that product. You need to be thinking about doing that, 6, maybe 7 months ahead of time. So understand, where the future is going to be with your product and try to work within those guidelines. I think that's also really important.
Yeah, thank you. And just wanted to circle back as well, Tracy, to your comment about the HACCP certification. I think that's really important for some of the farmers on the line, depending on where you're selling into. If that food safety programming is a requirement for your buyer, then it's important that the farmers are mindful of that as well.
100%. We've had so many recalls and on items lately, so it's the traceability factor on things is a huge part of our business.
Yeah. Mark, I see you nodding as well.
Yeah, like I say about, buying direct, I've never had any issues with farmers. I mean, I believe in their honesty and their integrity and their helpfulness to teach us what's available out there in the marketplace. But at the same time, we need, like, if you come to me and say, well, I want to sell to you, I'll basically try and put you in touch with our suppliers, because we do need that traceability. And I need to be able to know that, like, I don't have to call 15 different farmers to figure out what happened. There's a system in place, and as a broader public sector institution, we need to make sure that we get notifications appropriately when things happen, because again, we're not one restaurant, right? We have 10 different locations on campus where this food will go to. So I need to be able to pinpoint exactly what was ordered, when it came in, who it went to on campus, and all those things. Thankfully, it hasn't really been a massive issue in the last number of years. And I would also add, just too, there was a question about, what's your sort of beginning of your journey to do things. Like, pick up the phone and call me, or email me, or come and meet me. Like, I am so more than happy to meet with the farmers and producers, to see first of all, to learn. I mean, that's the key. Education is the key for me. And you know, and I'm happy to help make a relationship through our distributors, because that's where I want them to be, right? In a lot of cases, as I said, we can pivot with our menus and things. So there's certain things that we can do, indirect buying and stuff, but everybody has to understand, because we are part of broader public sector, we go out for tender for business. So as long as you're in that distribution model or channel, you would be included in there. And it's not just the biggest distributors all the time for us. So I don't want anybody to think, it's only the big distributors and big corporate. We have lots of distributors, and we can go through smaller channels, because we believe that is a key to success for. I mean, everybody. You can't. It was interesting what Jackie said, how much barbecue sauce you might have at one point. Well, you can't sell everything, right? So it's you pick and choose, but you want to also be able to support the community, as much as you possibly can. We can't, again, even though we're that big, we just can't do everything. So
Right.
but if you don't pick up the phone and call and talk to us, then I'm not being, unfortunately, these days, with the amount of other things that I'm responsible to do, I don't have time like I used to 10 years ago to just go out to farmers markets and do all those things to meet people. It just, unfortunately, that's the nature of the business these days.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing this right, I'm hearing, don't be intimidated. Just pick up the phone, give you a
Yeah.
call. And yeah, so maybe after today's call, you might find your inbox or your voicemail full. So that's really great. Tracy, did you want to add to that as well?
Yeah. So I was just going to mention, like Woody and myself, being in touch with independent restaurants all the time, I've come across farmers as well that have wanted to sell direct to my restaurants. So I kind of hooked those two up together as well. I've had farm markets in my territory, and they sell their goods, and I would get them hooked up with some of my restaurants, having their sauces or having their type of products in their restaurants as well. So it's all one big network. So again, like Mark was saying, just reach out to people and we can hook you up in different directions.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So kind of demystifying that distribution space and institutional procurement space. So this is really, really great. Maybe just super quick, because we are basically at time, but one piece of advice you'd give to the farmers on the line today. We've heard a few good things already, but maybe just to wrap things up, Tracy, I'll piggyback off of you. Go ahead.
Again, it's all about communication and relationships. And I think forming those two bonds with restaurant or a distributor is the biggest thing that you can do.
Great, thank you. And Woody or Mark, you go ahead.
I think I'll just say two things. One is be patient. Good relationships take time to build, and they take time to flourish. And the second thing would be, work with local food organizations. There was mention that I've done work with Taste Real. They're a great local organization, and they are the ones who are making the connections between farmer to plate. So really focus on those people as well, and the distribution partners that are all out there and do great work.
Thank you. And Woody, to wrap things up.
Just focus on your story, believe in yourself, and be passionate and challenge yourself and challenge those around you, and you'll reap the benefits of that. So, and have fun.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, this was really great. Thank you, Tracy, Woody, and Mark. This was really a great conversation, really helpful advice for folks on the line. Really appreciate your time today. And hopefully you start to hear some phone calls and emails come in after this workshop. So appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And with that, don't go anywhere, folks. Please, I'm going to bring Joanne Fuller back, who's going to walk us through a couple of resources before we break for lunch today.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you. What a great panel. Both panels, very good presentations. Excellent session today. Lots of great information and advice. So hopefully you can find some of what you heard helpful, and it was very informative. So thank you to our presenters. I just wanted to bring you into some resources that are available. There's the Community Futures Development Corporation and the Small Business Enterprise Center. Your local economic development office and planning staff can often help you. Commodity and agriculture organizations, and of course the organizations that were referred to in today's presentation. There are some Government of Ontario programs that we want you to know about. There's the Growing Future Opportunities Initiative, the Ontario Craft Cider Marketing Fund and Small Cidery Program, the Dairy Processing Modernization Initiative, Future Entrepreneur Canada, and Labor Force Management Strategies initiatives. Don't be afraid to reach out to find out what is out there. So next steps, we appreciate the support of our community and partner organizations. And we just have 3 workshops in January, and then we have 2 more in February. You can access these workshops at ofa.on.ca/cultivating local. January 9th, we will talk about selling online and leveraging social media platforms. January 16th is labeling and attributes, organic, free-range, gluten-free, and more. And January 30th is exploring agritourism opportunities. And any of the workshops that you weren't able to attend, they are online at that OFA website. Okay, I just want to thank our presenters and thank our partners and OFA members for supporting these workshops. And I just want everybody to have a great day.